Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take on a Monday morning as we got through that long holiday weekend, a phenomenal weekend. Hopefully you had enjoyed the holidays as well. And last week, as we closed out the week, obviously it was a half day. And yet, because of the fact that we just continue to have these incredible volumes, even on a half day, we exceeded 20 million contracts. We actually traded over 21 million contracts on Thursday, not last Friday, but Thursday, with the market closed on Friday. And amazing just to see the leadership once again. It was Apple, it was Tesla, it was across the board, some monsters that were actually, again, eclipsing that million contract trade. So that was something that definitely stood out. Also, on top of that, just watching the volatility index as that's been easing back. And we were talking about it not too terribly long ago at 29, a quick spike last week. And then we started to drift lower and lower and lower. And a very interesting day in terms of the market, just because it's a half day, it was a shortened market, obviously. And within that, we had a market that was moving to the upside. The Dow was up about 70 points and the NASDAQ was up pretty decent as well. And then we dropped later into the late part of the morning. And in the final hour, just rocketed right back to where we were. By the way, if you want any Q&A afterwards, definitely submit that for me and I'll try to get to that as well. I know it's going to be a busy day for a lot of us. I'm going to be doing the halftime report today as well. So just to keep that in mind. Now, every major sector was moving to the upside except energy this past week on Thursday. And as a matter of fact, you look over at the energy space and it was definitely under some pressure. And the beta names certainly getting the brunt of that as they were getting pushed to the downside. But we still had a pretty nice day. Technology was up decent, about 0.5% or so. And so it was really not as dull as it sounds, but up 70, and it was kind of ho-hum as we were pushing around. And now as we get into today, today is going to be very, very interesting because of the fact that President Trump was signing what he said he would not sign as we were going into this past week. A lot of people were concerned government shutdown as a possibility. So that was certainly a concern as well. Looks like we're going to avoid that. That sparked the markets. And you look over at energy, you look at materials, you look at financials. There's your leadership. As we were looking in the pre-market, we had a very nice, strong move to the upside, up about 160 points on the Dow. That's now turned into up about 300 points and a nice, solid move to the upside. Now, we've actually come down a little bit when you take a look over at the technology space, along with obviously biotech technology and the semiconductors. But you look over at the NASDAQ, that's actually off of the highs. Meanwhile, you're looking at the Dow that's been accelerating to the highs. And everything seems to be moving to the upside, at least right now. And matter of fact, you look over at the price of crude, we are rapidly approaching that $49 level after we'd been crushed and underneath 40 for such a long period of time. And then suddenly we've had this pretty nice, very solid move to the upside out of crude. And we've been talking about Bitcoin, certainly many of those names in that space, not just Bitcoin, but other names that participate. Take a look at what's happening today with Riot. And we're seeing more paper there as well, some unusual option activity in there. So continued to see in that whole crypto space, we are seeing movement to the upside, and it's been a very violent move to the upside, specifically for Bitcoin. Volatility, we've been hanging right around that 22 or a little bit less after we had that big spike last week. So it's something that I think is continuing to play out. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that are talking about some kind of a pullback. We may see some sort of a pullback. We haven't seen one. We haven't seen anything close to a monstrous pullback like a lot are expecting. At some point, you would think that maybe that will be the case. Maybe it comes in January. Maybe it comes after we get through the presidential swearing in and all the rest of that as we push into February. But for right now, we've just continued to move and accelerate, it seems, to the upside. Whether we're talking about the S&P, that continues to move to the upside. The Dow has continued to hit new highs. NASDAQ continues to hit new highs. So you can get an idea of that theme. And by the way, the unusual option activity today already just hitting and striking across the board. Now, let's hit some of that. But by the way, before I do that, let's just talk about BABA for a second. BABA's been under some pressure. There's no doubt about it. And you look at those headlines, we've seen some option paper, a lot of folks just poking around in there. I think that the smarter move right now is to let some of that dust settle, because we are certainly seeing a stock that's been under pressure. Jack Ma certainly seems to be under pressure from the Chinese government. And that seems to be a very, very right now, I think a very difficult spot to be in. And at some point in time, we might start to see, with the news today, for instance, they had $6 billion buyback. Actually, that's moved now to a $10 billion buyback, but that doesn't seem to be helping out the stock a whole heck of a lot. So that's something to keep in mind. And we are seeing a little bit of activity in there as well. But I caution you just because of all the news headlines that we're seeing there right now. So we've been talking about some of the precious metals. We hadn't been talking about those for a while. Suddenly, last week or so, we started to see a little bit in gold, a little bit in silver. And so I'm going to pick this one out from the unusual. That's the SIL, silver ETF. And we're seeing they're actually not just going very short term like we've seen so many times. Now we're suddenly seeing something that's going all the way out, and the activity we're seeing actually out into April, the April 57 calls, about 7,000 of those being bought for $1.50. Looks like pretty much one print practically. And as we're looking at that, I like the other side of it, which is the hedge. And we are seeing selling of the 63 strike calls. So buying of the 57, selling the 63s, giving themselves a little bit of room to the upside, and also saying, you know what, we think the upside could be capped. So that's why selling those options actually is a very disciplined move and something that I think stands out for me and why this is very interesting. I already got into the junior silver miners. Just last week, we had some activity in there as well. So I've got a little bit of exposure there. I'm probably not going to be in this trade, but I'll certainly be on the halftime report with all kinds of unusual. That should be fairly easy today because it is absolutely flowing right now. So a couple quick things. Let's see, roll, Riot or take off the table. Well, I've been rolling Riot. So you know where I stand. It just continues to see buyers. And if you're a big fan of what you're seeing in Bitcoin and you think that the end is not quite near yet, now we could see some pullbacks, there's no doubt about it. But by rolling, at least you're taking most of your money off the table and you get an opportunity to have some exposure still to the upside. That's exactly what I've been doing. And as a matter of fact, some of that Riot paper today is some of the paper that I participated in. Is FUBU a buy at these levels, Pete? It's absolutely taken off, no doubt about that. It feels very lofty. And if I were going to be involved in FUBU right now, I would probably only do it through options, and I most likely would do it with the spread. Very similar to what we're seeing in that silver ETF where you're spreading it off and you're taking some of the risk off. I think that would make the most sense right now. What else do we got here? We've got a couple other ones. Thoughts on CRI? Oh, I love that name. I'll tell you what, Cryoport is one of my favorites. And I met the CEO and it convinced me the day that I met him as they were ringing the bell not too terribly long. Well, actually now it is probably about a year ago or so. Really interesting company. I suggest anybody who's not familiar with it, they look it up because what they do is something where they are the only ones who do what they do. And it has to do with shipping of things that need specific temperatures and so forth. And that is an untapped area except for the one participant right now, Cryoport. And I think that they'll continue to work to the upside. That's a name that's been really, really profitable for us this year. And I'll tell you what, it's been an amazing ride in there. And that's where I've got stock. I have not had options, never did have options in there, but after sitting down and hearing about this company, I got that much more excited about it, and I actually bought the stock that same day. So what else do we have here? How are you alerted to when to exit Riot? I don't know that you're ever alerted to exiting any of the trades that people talk about each and every day. I think you have to have your own set of rules in terms of once a stock is moved or an option is moved to a specific level. I think you have to have your own set of rules on, all right, I'm going to take off half here, or I'm going to take off all, whatever that might be, but you've got to be disciplined and stick to that. And that's something that we preach all the time, is talking about discipline within the markets, because too many people just fall in love with something rather than their wife. They fall in love with a stock, and that's never a good thing. So be very, very careful of that. Hi, Pete. Do you think that Tesla is a buy at the current levels? Tesla's been an amazing stock. We all know that. Elon Musk just continues to do things that are extraordinary, and he's trying now to put and piece together all of the different companies that he's a part of. I don't know exactly. I think Tesla's another one of these names where, despite the fact the implied volatilities are extremely high, because of the movement that you see in this stock, both to the upside and obviously when we have moves to the downside, those can be pretty violent as well. I think because of that, you have to have spreads here as well. There's a lot of names where I just have individual, I'm long calls, that's it. but there are other names where the implied volatility and on top of that, just the sheer premiums that you're dealing with when you're talking about stocks that are trading well over $100, like an Amazon, like an Apple, like so many other names, Microsoft, the premiums can get very high. And because of that, I like to try to hedge some of that by spreading that off in some way, shape, or form. So that's something that I do a lot of. Space. This might be my last one because I got to get running. Space, sell or more upside. I continue to own the stock. I continue to own calls, so I'm doubly long. That's not something that I do very often, but this is a name that I still consider to be in the infant stages of where they are. And I think this stock can go higher. Doesn't mean that we can't have some bumps along the way, but I certainly think this is a stock that can continue to go a lot higher. So I'm owning that stock right now. What's that? Oh, my wife wants me to give you a little. So here we are at 88 Tactical. Yeah, we're Market Rebellion. I can talk about anything I want. We're here at 88 Tactical. We got my wife off to the side. I've got a future son-in-law who's an Army man as well. He's a sniper and all the rest of that stuff. Pretty cool. So we are at 88 Tactical. This is an unbelievable place. And this is the backdrop. Those who respond prevail. I tell you what, everything about what they do here is incredible. I'm so impressed with everybody here from the management side. They're unbelievable. The ownership as well. My daughter actually is employed here as well. So she's a part of these guys as well. Beautiful facility. You've heard me talk about it before on Twitter maybe, but this is basically almost a country club, gun club. Wouldn't you call it something like that? It's pretty amazing. Beautiful place. Thank you to the guys here at 88, and we'll see you later on. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the halftime report in just an hour or two.